everyone. We'll get started with the meeting as soon as we do the flag salute. If you'd please join us. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will call the meeting to order, and with regard to the agenda, members of the council, the city attorney has asked that item number 10, the proposed executive session, be taken off tonight's agenda, and my understanding is that his intent would be to ask us to put it back on in August. So unless there's, if you object, that's fine. We can go to executive session, but we're just going to look at each other. Other than that, any issues with the agenda? Okay. Seeing none, I move the agenda be approved. Somebody second that.
I second that.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Approved. With regard to the consent agenda, anyone have questions with regard, or comments with regard to the minutes from July 1st? Anyone have any questions with regard to any of the warrants that are listed for payment? Okay. In that case, can I have a motion to approve the three items on the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I second it.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you. With regard to public comment for matters on tonight's agenda, there aren't a lot of things that we'll be taking action on tonight. We will probably make a decision on whether or not to whether or not we're going to go over the revenue neutral rate with regard to our budget this year. The recommendation is that we do indicate that we're going to go over it, because that doesn't bind us, and when we get clearly through our budget, we can always decide not to do that. But we want to keep that option open. We're not taking action on the mobile food vendor ordinance, but last meeting I went ahead and let folks that wish to comment on that do so that the council would have the benefit of comments of that information when discussing this. So really those are the items that would be open for comment. So if anyone wishes to make a public comment, food vendor or otherwise, well, I say or otherwise, it has to be with regard to something on the agenda. Just go ahead and state your name and make a comment.
Ruth Herbal, and my comment is on the food vendor ordinance. And I just want to bring a couple of things to your attention. I did a little research, and I found this information on the Kansas Justice Institute, which is a nonprofit law firm dedicated to fighting against government regulations that interferes with your right to earn an honest living. And this particular item is on food truck and mobile businesses. The right to earn an honest living. Has the government made it harder for you to do business? Have your rights been violated? Running a small business is tough, even more challenging when the government puts unreasonable, unfair, and unnecessary roadblocks in your way. Cities around Kansas make it excruciating difficult for food trucks and other mobile vendors to earn an honest living. The permitting fees alone are a significant challenge for food truck owners. Fees considered unreasonable and excessive range from $80 to $600. Making matters worse, municipalities often restrict where the vendors can set up shop. They won't let food trucks fairly compete against restaurants. Kansas Justice Institute considers competition restrictions, which is unreasonable and arbitrary, or the distance, which range from 50 to 150 feet. Why this matters. Food truck owners and other mobile businesses have a constitutional right to earn an honest living, free from unreasonable government regulations. The government shouldn't put their thumb down on the scale to protect restaurants in competition. Economical protectionism isn't constitutional. Kansans have a fundamental and natural right to earn honest living, free from unreasonable and arbitrary government regulations. They have the right to be treated equally under the law, meaning cities can't prohibit food trucks in areas where it would allow similar restaurants unless there is a good reason to do so. Cities don't prevent barbershops from competing with hair salons or keep one pharmacy away from the other, and they shouldn't do this for food trucks either. And I have a couple of opinions or facts that I would like you to consider. And on the ordinance, in section 1, definitions, on the pending ordinance, it's simply, in item 2, it says, any event the city organizes or assists in organizing where the city has approved vending by specific mobile food vendors at that event. This would be a case of picking and choosing who could participate in the event. This could be considered protectionism, and this item conflicts with what's in section 5, which states ordinances will be suspended during city-approved events. So how can the city approve specific food vendors for something that they are organizing or helping to organize? Section 2, operating regulations and requirement. Number 1, movement required. Mobile food units are prohibited from remaining in a single vending location for more than 10 hours out of 25 or 24 period, during which vendors from the unit occurs in such location. This would hurt our vendors in Marion that have permanent locations, like that one place in the shaved ice trailer behind the flower shop. This would make them move their units. And I hope you reconsider that and do away with that restriction completely.
You're way over your time.
Could I just?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just have half a page.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Distance from restaurants. No mobile food vendors may vend on public or private property within 150-foot radius from a brick and mortar restaurant during restaurant's posted hours, unless a mobile food truck has written permission. Restriction of distance would be considered competition restrictions and is unconstitutional, and it would not stand up in court if challenged. And then I just have a few other questions. It says, why are fees, time limits, and required information to apply for permit not included in this ordinance? This would save the food truck owners multiple trips to City Hall to purchase permits if they know ahead of time what was needed in order to secure a permit. Ordinance sets codes, and code enforces ordinance. In order to establish or change codes, it needs to be done by ordinance. So why pass more than one ordinance to set the terms for the permit for the food trucks? I realize the fees can be changed by resolutions, but first they need to be set, and these fees are not something that would change regularly. The regulations needs to be set by ordinances. By not including this type of information in this ordinance that is establishing a food truck permit, it would double the expense of publicizing another ordinance to amend the existing ordinance to add the regulations. Thank you. And I also would like to say you could check with City Code Financial at Wichita, who originally set up our codes, if you have any questions on setting up the codes and how they can be changed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Just
So I get
state,
30 minutes, is that what you said?
you're supposed to have 3 minutes, but clearly I'm not doing a good job enforcing that, so.
My name's Brent Miles, and I'm here speaking on the food truck. As you all know, my wife and I own the property where the alleged food truck has been. And I guess I want to start off, I spoke with a couple of you, Mayor Powers, and I'm going to get a quick overview of how this came about so that that's on record and everybody understands. But when this started, Ms. Vejos, I was aware that she was wanting to come to town. I think we need more food options, restaurants, whatever in town. I reached out to her and told her that we had a spot. And when that happened, she asked what day. We picked Sunday. Why did we pick Sunday? Tacos closed. Everybody else is pretty much closed. She was here the first Sunday, did really well, came back the second Sunday, did again really well came to my attention during that second Sunday. Taco ended up calling Mayor at home, was going kind of pretty upset about it, and anyway, that kind of proceeded from there. So at that time, I did not know that, and she wanted to come back for another day, said she was doing really well. We picked Monday. Why did we pick Monday? He's closed. Everybody else again is pretty well closed. So she was here. Well, then on that Monday, I got a call while she was open. I was up there. I got a call from the health inspector saying she didn't have a food license. There was an anonymous call that came in, which was bogus. And the food inspector calls back. She said, I know who she is. She does have one. I said, I know. It's posted on her window. So at that point, yes, I'm kind of ticked off about it. I'm like, she wanted to come another day. I said, I don't care now. Come whenever you want. So that's how she ended up coming on Wednesday. That Wednesday, she was here. There was probably a dozen, 15 people lined up, waiting on food, ordering food. And Zach, another officer, come up, and I thought, made the comment, are you guys getting food? And he's like, no, just coming. We got an anonymous call that she's parked on the sidewalk, which we can pretty much guess where all that's coming from. But anyway, this has escalated, as you obviously know, and has gotten into almost to the point of, I feel like, harassment from him. He's standing out there taking pictures, and about every time she's there, contacting customers, you know, and again, that's outside of your guys' wheelhouse, but that's what's going on. And I feel like, you know, I like Taco. I mean, I like his food place. I think it's a unique establishment. My wife and I attend there, or did. We're banned from there right now. But our whole intent was to bring something more to Marion. And I think we have a lot of other options. That has happened. And, you know, and there was comments made in a couple other meetings, and I apologize, I was not able to be here for those. But, you know, one gentleman made the comment that, you know, I'm the only guy, or we're the only people profiting from this deal. Well, first of all, as a landlord, when you own property, I don't think it really matters whether I charge $20 or $1,000. If me and the tenant agree, it's free enterprise. But that being said, the whole intent behind Ms. Vejos is she wants a permanent location. And so we've been working on trying to find her a 2-bedroom house to rent and move here, set up an establishment, but she's getting so much harassment, she's thinking about pulling out. And I hope that doesn't happen. That's all I'm going to say about that. The other thing I'm going to address is, just so you guys, and you may all be aware of it, but when we moved to town 5 years ago, our intent is to make Marion better. I mean, that's what we love. We love the community. And we started off with my wife's salon out on the highway. Since then, we've moved downtown. We've bought a couple buildings, bought HRK. In that whole mix of everything, I mean, we've got 5 apartments basically we brought back into existence, or for tenants that were not filled. Trailer house filled up.
Brent?
Okay.
Yeah.
And so we've got all of that kind of stuff happening, and we want to continue to progress and try to get Marion in a more positive aspect, I think, of what we're doing. Last thing I'll say on that whole issue, and I'm sure most of you read, if you haven't read Paul White's letter to the editor last week, that pretty much sums it up. I think it was spot on. Thank you.
Before you go,
Yeah.
because I have a question.
Sure.
And I'm not trying to put you in a position of representing everybody on one side of an issue, but you're the one that's here. So I'm going to ask this. One of the things that we're going to discuss tonight is obviously that distance restriction. And the point of that would be basically fairness to the brick and mortar buildings who do pay property taxes, all that, you know the arguments. Mm-hmm. And the other side of it is to protect local businesses from the, transient in and out kind of thing. One way to do that, other than trying to put a limitation on where you could set something, would be to limit the number of days that a particular vendor could come to town in a year, in a week, in a month, in a whatever, or specify what days they're available to them, such as Sunday and Monday. Do you, that's something I'm going to throw out for discussion. Do you want to, anything more you want to say about that?
Yeah, I would say I'm all in favor of an ordinance. I think the things, again, getting back to, and Paul kind of summed it up, but I think that ordinance should, take care of things like if you want to charge a permit, sure, set number of days, maybe a couple days a week, whatever, that's fine. Health, food license, insurance, those things. Personally, I think the distance thing is bogus. I think that's where you guys, that's just my personal opinion, and not just because I'm involved in this, but I think we should be encouraging business any way possible. And I think setting 150 foot or 100 or 200, if it's 150 foot, for example, she can move over and park with Jean's permission on the food bank. Is that going to change anything? No. And I think it's just more, that's coming from a one direction, basically, I think. And then you're going to open a whole can of worms, I think, lemonade stands, can they be downtown? And then you got to get permission from, Mrs. Collett last meeting, I think it was, made the comment, she encouraged it. Have another beer lady set up right out front. I think competition's good. It makes the vendor or the food establishment better. And the other thing we're going to get into, if we're talking brick and mortar, taco's not a brick and mortar.
I'm going to define him as brick and mortar.
It's not a brick and mortar. He's cooking out of a food truck.
You should be a politician because I ask a question and you have flipped it on me. I'm not trying to be snotty to you. I'm impressed.
It's the same thing. And there's ways around it. I could take and she's in the HRK, the old gas station. Does it qualify then? I just plug her into some gas and she's good? It's the same deal.
I know what you're talking about. I disagree, but that is clearly something we have to address in the ordinance.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your coming.
Mr. Mayor, could I just say one more thing? Brent's right.
Does anyone else want to speak? Okay, then go ahead.
Brent's right. They are not a brick and mortar. They're classified as a tavern bar on the city tax roll or the federal county tax.
Aren't most tavern bars brick and mortar?
Okay, the definition.
We're not going to have this argument. We're not going to do it. You're not on the council anymore. We're not going to do it.
Well, thank you.
Well, I'm sorry, but we have to make these decisions. Okay, let's move on to the 2025 budget and the issue, if I can find my paperwork, of the notice of the intent with regard to the revenue neutral rate. Just a brief explanation. When the city has a mill levy, the mill levy, each mill raises so much money. If the assessed valuation in the city goes up, then a mill makes more money than it made the year before. So you could have the mill levy at the same level and be bringing in more money because the valuation of property is higher. If the city plans, even preliminarily, to bring in more money than they did the year before, whether it's by raising the mill levy or not raising the mill levy, then they need to give notice of that. And so at this point in time, based upon our city administrator's recommendation, I'm going to suggest for discussion, and I'm going to move, and then I'd like to have some discussion, that we give notice of intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate for the upcoming 2025 budget, and direct the city clerk to give notice of that to the county. That is my motion, And I would note that doing that does not mean we have to exceed the revenue neutral rate. It merely means that we are keeping open our ability to do so until we've had more time to go through the budget. So is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have motion and second. Discussion. No discussion?
I mean, I'm in favor of it. It's just that we can always say not do it. It's not, we're not saying we're doing it. We're just saying we have the, still keeping the option open to do it.
Right.
Right. That's where I'm at with it. I want to just leave our options open as long as we can,
Yeah, I agree.
till we have tighter budget numbers figured out.
I have talked to Janet today about budget hearing and timing it with regard to our obligations to get the budget completed. And we're looking at September 16 at 5 for our budget hearing date. And we would set this at 5 on the revenue neutral issue and then go into the budget hearing itself in the regular meeting. So, all right, any other discussion? All in favor of the motion to give the notice, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Janet, if you would, it can be signed by me or you. You indicated you're comfortable doing that. Go ahead and prepare that and get it over to the county, please.
Okay.
Thank you. And James Ging is here. We discussed how far he drove to get here. Please be nice to him. He had a long drive from KPP.
It's all good. I apologize, Brooke can't be here today. She had an obligation up with her kids, so I told her that I could handle it. So you got the B team today. Before you is a memo, and it's very similar to the one that we presented to you our last informational trip. But you'll see on there some blue sections where it's been updated with where we stand today. So a little brief refresher, we set out to build 20 megawatts of solar in 9 of our cities. 2 of those sites did not develop out for us. That was in Mulvane and Kingman. So therefore we're down to 7 sites. We were able to maximize a few of the locations without changing footprints. So we are still going to get to around 18 megawatts installed instead of the 20. We're working through the final application revisions, and that has actually been submitted to USDA, where they now they go through it and then through their different committees before we get approval. And we're expecting, or we're hoping for approval by mid-August. What that approval looks like, it's basically an acceptance letter, and then that allows us to move forward with our temporary financing, and then start ordering parts. So under the little checklist here, I think you can see the blue items that were completed. That's the environmental, the tribal, and the archaeological requirements were submitted. And we are beyond the comment periods, and everything's turned out good so far. We have recorded the easements that you provided us, and then we also worked with Margot and her team on the zoning determinations and worked with the local property owners to make sure their interests were protected on that site. Let's see, the USDA application has been submitted. It's been through underwriting, so we are just waiting on those committees to meet and approve our project.
Hey, James,
Yes.
it says for the Clay Center site, is that just on this front page, a project update?
Progress update.
Oh,
Is that just a
that is a typo.
typo? Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that we're in the state that is
Yeah.
under there.
Yep, I'm
Okay.
gonna fire Brooke for that. Since she's not here. Thank you. So, moving on to page 2, you can see the 7 different sites and the different specs about those sites, if you will. And then the bottom of that has the Marion, the specs for the Marion site. You can see where we've
we've kind of cheated things on the left side, if you will, to east, to make sure we keep that lay-down yard and that access to the properties behind there, and to the west of that side open. And then also on the east side, we've moved that to the west to make sure that that road remains open, that passageway there, so we don't landlock anyone back through there. So those were the big things that came out of the zoning meeting, and just wanted to point out that we've made those adjustments, and we're still good on this side. We know we have a little drainage issues we're going to work through, and hopefully through our civil work, we'll also make sure that the drainage is left better than what it is today on that side. On the last page is kind of a sample timeline. It's all depending on that notice to proceed, that very top item. The sooner we get that, the sooner we can move forward, and then that'll kick off this timeline. The Marion project's probably going to be more into Q3 of 2025 before it is complete, just simply because of moving around the state and moving crews efficiently around, and probably the Hillsborough and Marion sites will happen simultaneously, and but hopefully by Q3 of 2025 we're producing energy out of all of our sites. So I'd love to take any questions you may have.
I just had the comment, same thing that we were kind of discussing before the meeting started, that although I didn't notice that Marion and Hillsborough, of the 7 sites, are the only ones that had any artifacts found.
That's right, yeah.
Theirs were termed expected insignificance, and ours were guessing not historic.
Yeah. Sorry, these are notes that we kind of take on the fly during meetings, so maybe they mean something to us. There were some historical artifacts found, mostly foundations and stuff to do with homesteads around. No museum-worthy items, if you will. I think in Hillsborough, I think they had an arrowhead that they found. So,
Any questions for James?
thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Give us a heads up when you're getting ready to start
Oh,
doing.
definitely.
Thank
And
you.
as things progress, I owe you a visit every now and then to make sure that you're kept aware of what's going on.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
Drive
James.
safely, thank you.
Okay, well, let's talk about the mobile food vendor ordinance, or proposed ordinance. I reached out to Heidi Gertz, and or Getz, I'm really not sure exactly how to pronounce her name, with Department, it's actually Department of Agriculture now, but was health inspector, her former title, and asked her to look over the proposed ordinance, give me any comments that she had, and she told me she was really busy, but she did get back to me late this afternoon. Apparently, some places in these kind of ordinances have a provision where if you set vendor hours or hours of operation for transient vendors, that the mayor can, I guess, grant a variance or whatever, sign off on different business hours. I'm a no on that one.
Is that because you don't want people showing up at your all
You don't
hours on
wonder
your
why they-
doorstep?
Generally speaking, I'm a no on that. I really don't know what she means on this one. Okay, that one just doesn't make any sense to me. She did say that some things that we could include is to make sure they're licensed, which definitely we need and want to do. Make sure they have water to wash their hands. Find out where they plan to dump waste if they're going to dump it in the city. Make sure they meet state requirements. The requirements part is a definite, as far as washing their hands and where they plan to dump waste, certainly could be something that could be included in an application form if we wish to do that. We could have our application form, ask any questions we want. So let's get then over to okay. The memo that I prepared addressed, I think, the things that we talked about in the previous meeting as being iffy or something we ought to take a look at, and then some other things that just occurred to me as I was working on it. Initially, under hours of operation, I thought that we probably needed to amend the current ordinance that applies to solicitors, canvassers, and peddlers, because they limited it 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. But as I thought about that, realized that that particular clause applying to solicitors, canvassers, and peddlers is probably very appropriate, because I don't think anybody wants somebody knocking on their door doing a survey earlier than 8 or after 8. So with regard to what the city would do with food vendors, I'm proposing, I'm throwing it out here, that other than during city-approved events, and by the way, when we talk about city-approved events, that's not talking about the city cherry-picking a particular vendor for a thing. It's Art in the Park, Old Settlers Day, Chingawassa Days. Those events are separate from they're not separate totally, but they are operating on their own, and they have whatever vendors they have. And these particular provisions will not apply to the vendors at those particular events. But so other than those, because like Chingawassa Days, they're going to be open until the concert's done, that sort of thing. But my proposal is that we set it out that hours of operation would be 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday. So any discussion about that? Do you like it, not like it, want to do something different, want to change it?
I like the hours you've got there. The only thing that I thought of when you were just talking about city-approved events is we do have some kind of random times through the year where, like, if we've done a street dance in the past, right? Or
We have,
done
yeah.
like I think they called it Falloween last year, or Holly Jolly, some of those type of events. But quite honestly, with that 8 a.m. to 11 p.m., I really think you've almost got it covered, just serving food till 11 p.m. on a Friday or Saturday night.
Okay.
So I don't think to me, I think we've got ourselves covered with 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday.
Okay.
I agree.
I like those hours.
All right. So I'm going to then assume that you're giving me an okay to have Brian go ahead on that one. Days of operation. My proposal is to add a new part, and this is, I literally just came up with my own thoughts on this, and I would welcome you to say, well, I like this or don't like that or change it. But mobile food vendors who have established a permanent residence within the city limits of Marion or a 15-mile radius thereof shall have no limitation on days of operation. Mobile food vendors residing outside of the defined area shall be limited to. So I'm going to stop there for now. I'm thinking, when I did this, of the ice cream truck that's now operating, the Hawaiian Ice business that's over by the nursery, those kind of vendors. They live in or within a 15-mile radius of Marion. Why did I say 15 miles? I feel like we need to include the county lake in anything where they're more us than they are anybody else. And I thought, well, okay, then what do I do? 5 miles, but you start to get north, you've got others that basically do their shopping and business down here. So I said 15, and I know that includes Hillsborough, and that was intentional. So any of those folks would be considered to be, I guess, city approved for being, quote, get the benefits of permanent residence. So, what do you think of that?
In the previous ordinance for the peddlers and the other stuff outside of food trucks, it was talking about county residents, Marion County, in
It
fact.
did, that's correct.
So this is actually being a little more specific in that.
Yeah,
For good or bad, but just pointing that out, that, so that it would remain the same though for the rest of the peddler licensing stuff.
yes.
That wouldn't change, this would just be for the
Yes.
mobile food vendors.
That's right, and I don't, if you want to say reside within Marion County, I think that, I have no particular objection to that. I just, you gotta make a definition, that's what I came up with.
With,
So-
go on.
So I'll just go on with, and we can talk about the whole thing. Mobile food vendors residing outside of the defined area shall be limited to. You got all kinds of options here. No more than 30 days in any calendar year, 60 days, 90 days, or you could say no more than 2 days in any week with a maximum of X days in a calendar year. You could say an option 3 would be that they are limited to Sundays and Mondays, as I discussed with Brent before. I really think we need input from you guys on what you want to do there.
This is just me, I like no more than 2 or 3 at whatever number in any week, stop. No, like, don't set a maximum on it. Set a maximum amount in a given week, but don't limit it over the course of a year then, or 6 months, or any time span. Just no more than 2 days per week.
Okay.
Done. That's my thought.
Other thoughts?
I agree with that, because then if you put a maximum on it, you know, I just, and I think also if you do the 30, 60, 90, that really doesn't give a lot of opportunity and time for people to come.
The 60 and 90, 30 would be very restrictive, but the 60 and 90 are pretty consistent with other ordinances that I've looked at. And I mean, that's up to the individual city, clearly, but, if you did 2 days in any week, do you have any desire to say what days it should be? Or you just want to say 2 days and let it go?
My preference would just be 2 days. Not limit it to days of the week.
Yeah, I don't like limiting certain days.
When we come to the discussion of the distance, the earlier proposal for the ordinance said no more than, has to be at least, 150 feet away. And the argument that was given for that was that to protect local businesses who pay property tax and who you assume are paying their sales tax, blah, blah, blah. I think that if you're concerned about that and you want to give some protection to your local resident merchants, that you do that more by limiting the days of the week, not specific days, but limiting the amount of time they can come here, than you do by saying where they have to set up.
I guess this was just a thought I just had in terms of days of the week. If we want to try and limit, say something about no more than 2 or 3 or whatever the number is, days a week, with only one of those days being a Friday or Saturday. So that somebody, if we set it at 2 days a week, somebody's not coming in and setting up Friday night and Saturday night, which are obviously the 2
Prime times.
bigger nights. So you're right, whether they want to choose Friday night or Saturday night, up to them, or none of those nights. or maybe not limit at all. It was just a thought that I had of a way to.
So, mobile food vendors running outside the defined area shall be limited to no more than 2 days in any week, with only one of those days being a Friday or a Saturday.
Is that then set in stone, or can that then be changed? Can they say, well, this week I wanna come on Monday, let's just say Monday, Tuesday, and then next week I wanna come Wednesday, Thursday?
I would interpret that to say that if I want to come on Monday, Tuesday, I can come on Monday, Tuesday. And then if the next week I decide I want to come Monday, Saturday, then those are my 2 days.
Yeah.
But you can't come on Saturday, Sunday, Friday,
Friday,
Saturday.
Saturday.
Yeah. Which, I get the logic of that. I have no problem with that. And keep in mind, what we're going to do here, if we can agree on on basic language, it's all going to go to the city attorney, who will then massage it into the proposed ordinance that will then become a part of the ordinance we already have.
So then with regards to the other business operating hours, well, that's still, I know we haven't got, that's further on down, it wasn't in this, but, where you wouldn't contradict with other, established business hours, published business hours, that's only then for the peddlers, not for the food ordinance.
Yes,
Right?
yeah.
So that there wouldn't be any wording in there for that, in that regard, to conflicts with brick and mortar business hours.
That was, and obviously, we'll have to take this has been of enough interest to people that we're gonna have to look very carefully at the work product when Brian gets it back to us, but that's certainly what I would want to have in, yeah.
Just clarifying, that's
Yeah.
what we're saying there.
Yeah.
But it was kind of like Brent said, you know, when they first chose those days, they chose Sunday and Monday because that's typically when restaurants weren't open. But then if all of a sudden you limit or say that it can only be those days, and then the local restaurants change their hours and then they're open those days, then you've kind of shot yourself in the foot on that to an extent. I mean, because now, when it first came about, I don't think Bill and Essie's was really open, or at least eating. Well, now they're open on Sundays, so, you know, I think, I kind of like like you said, the Friday, Saturday, you can't come both of those days, but I think to try and pick more specific days is just gonna be kind of chasing your tail, because if if somebody else changes something, then you've got them in here on a day when they're open, and I just think that'd be a little hard to stay ahead of.
So what I'm hearing is that you like what Zach proposed. No more than 2 days in any week, with only one of those days being a Friday or a Saturday. Your 2 days can't be Friday, Saturday. Okay, so can I put an okay by that?
Yeah.
And do we want to, also did we already okay the radius?
No, we didn't.
Nope.
We gotta
We
go
kinda
back to
went back
that.
to
Thank
that.
you, I got ahead of but I'm gonna strike while the iron is hot here, and got agreement on something. So what do you think? How do you want to define, or how do you want to deal with, to protect the people who are local residents, and who have permanent truck locations? And the main one of that would obviously be the snow cone place.
I think I'm fine with the 15-mile. I mean, I understand Tim's argument too of the Marion County, or that's what was in there previously.
Yeah, I wasn't arguing
really,
it should be Marion County, I'm just saying that's what it is for the rest of the
Yeah.
ordinance.
You'd probably go one way or the other, either way.
And if you want to be consistent, you could do that. You could say Marion County, and it would be consistent with what we are and everything else. There's logic in that. Amy?
No, I agree with the 15-mile radius.
If we do, and again, if we want to try to be consistent in how we treat mobile food vendors, and I laugh every time peddlers, canvassers, and solicitors, I don't know what, the Fuller Brush Man hadn't been by my house for a while, but would we want to change the definition or the wording in the current ordinance regarding those things to be consistent with what we're doing on the food vendors?
That depends what the wording was on those, I didn't really propose it.
Yeah.
So in those situations, what
Well, I gotta
There's a
find
lot
it.
of wording.
Got it here.
didn't apply.
Can we,
I've got all my papers messed up and now I can't find my order.
did we check mark the 15-mile thing and move on?
No,
So it'd be,
go ahead.
On the, is there a point in Marion County that's 16 miles from here?
That's what I was actually just gonna bring up. I just put
Probably
in,
have to be close.
but just here, this is just a map that I just pulled up where you can set a radius and pinpoint it. If we go to a 20-mile radius around Marion, that would now include all the way up to Tampa and include Peabody and Florence in that as well.
Okay.
So we would catch, and even Burns,
At 20 miles.
at 20 miles,
Would we want
with Gossel being right on the edge.
Marion County residents?
So whether we,
Oh, obviously, my proposal favored some Marion County residents, probably a large number of them, percentage of them, if you include Marion and Hillsborough and whatever. But I have no problem with favoring Marion County residents. Clearly, the original ordinance did that, so if you wanted to just make it that simple.
yeah, that's my opinion, we just go Marion, because you can go to 20 miles and you're catching basically every community that we have in town. Or in, sorry, every community that we have in the county, or we can just go to Marion County and,
Okay, so,
Might be simpler.
yeah. Then you don't have to measure when they apply. Or where you're measuring from, what part of town you're measuring from.
okay, so we will then, those who have established permanent residence within the city limits of Marion, city of Marion, or Marion County.
I don't know that we need the city of, right, we could just say
Well,
within,
it'll get cleaned up.
Okay.
Just bear with me, okay? Shall have no limitation on days of operation. Are we all okay with that? Is that an okay from you, Amy?
Well,
You're thinking,
I am thinking.
okay.
Come back to me.
Well, I'm moving on.
Okay, we'll move on. I can always go back to it.
Well, no, you can't. I got
Okay, I mean, so there's gonna be no limitations on days of the week that they can come then?
Or amount of time.
other than they can't come Friday and Saturday. They have to pick one or the other.
I don't think so, I think the way we
No.
got it
That's
worded,
why I guess
I would
I'm
interpret
confused.
that as
No
they are not,
restrictions.
they do not, they don't fall under
Any
whatever
limitations.
option, right,
What-
the
what-
second option.
Who doesn't?
The Marion County
Right.
residents.
Oh, right. Well, that's, Marion County doesn't, correct.
They could be here on a Friday and
Yeah.
Saturday if they
Yeah,
wanted
you
to.
just
They're
said that
Marion
backwards
County
was all.
residents.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's why I guess
Yeah.
I was.
You just said it
Okay, I-
backwards.
We said they, I thought you meant food trucks. I guess you did, but I thought you meant what we were calling transient food truck. That was the word that got used a lot in that first meeting
Right.
by a local business owner.
I mean, you can call it whatever you wanna call it.
Well, I'm calling it one that lives outside of whatever boundary we establish. And
Right.
I hear us saying we want to establish the county line as the boundary.
Yeah,
You're cool with that?
okay.
Okay, is that a yes?
Yes,
Okay.
okay.
Then D, work on the definition of mobile food unit in section 1 of the new ordinance. We've got people, and it kind of seems to depend on what side of the argument you want to fall on, whether you're calling it brick and mortar or not brick and mortar. But if you have someone who comes to town, buys a lot, permanently locates things on it, builds a building that is connected to gas and electricity and sewer and everything else, I don't know how you cannot call that a permanently located business under the general generic term of brick and mortar. And that's my take on it. If you guys disagree, I'll be glad to hear you out.
Does it
It
matter?
states on there that, I think I've seen a lot of people argue brick and mortar, and it states on there that if you're making a transaction and picking up a product in that location, then it refers to brick and mortar. So if they're going in there and they're paying for food, and then they're picking up the food from that building, then that refers to it as brick and mortar. I mean, it's simple as that.
Does it matter that much? I mean, with the Marion County thing,
Well, that's a good point. That's a very good point. It's saying,
because
The only thing with-
regardless of what they're
Yeah.
classified as, they're not
Yeah.
restricted on
However,
days
it would change it if it comes down to distance restrictions, whether it's defined as brick and mortar or a mobile food unit. That's more the issue that would,
Yeah.
well, that's on the
but
next
which we're getting
page.
to, so.
That's on the next page. Okay, I'll come back to that one. The next one is on page 2, movement required, section 2 of the proposed ordinance. That was the one that limited a mobile food unit to 10 hours in a specific location. Ms. Herbal spoke to that. I don't think it does much. But as I said in mine, that may be solving a problem that doesn't exist. I mean, we've got limits on hours they can be open. If they're going to come to town and be here on Tuesday and Wednesday, I don't expect them to have to move the unit Tuesday night before they open back up again Wednesday morning. So I would like to just strike that. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree with you.
I think that'd make more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amy?
Maybe that.
I agree. I think it's just kind of,
So I can do it, I get an okay on striking it?
Unless there's like some larger time, like you can't be there for more than 6 months or something. Something. Leave it parked there year round.
Well, yeah, well, there would be
But I
issues
think
with that,
less restriction is better on that than more. I'm good with taking it out.
Okay, next, paragraph F in my memo, distance from restaurants, which is section 2 of the proposed ordinance, A, location, sub 2. My thoughts are we either just eliminate that clause, the 150-foot radius, retain it as it is, change it to, because we've been asked to do that, to determine is that property line to property line, whatever, retain it and change it to say that it's door to door or back door to back door, or do whatever you want to do. Or my suggestion is that we change it to say no mobile food vendor may vend on public or private property in a location that blocks or obstructs the public entrance or parking area of an existing. And if we wanted to take out brick and mortar and just say restaurant, I guess we could, unless the mobile food truck vendor has written permission from the restaurant owner and maintains a record of such permission in its unit for inspection. Basically what we're saying there is you can't pull up in front of Rachel, since that came up earlier, and start selling beer rocks unless you've got her permission to do so. You can do it across the street, you can do it, few feet down, but you can't block the view of her business or her front door or her parking.
I'm kind of torn on this one because I feel that, yes, competition is great, but then if you're, right next door, we don't have a big enough town to support a lot of competition here, say. But if we're putting in place, distance, is it going to make a big difference if it's 150 feet? And then they just move it 10 more feet to make it 160 feet. It's going to be there in distance and in view, whether.
As I kind of struggled with this, and what it came down to was, yes, I don't like the fact that, and I've talked to Brian about this, I totally believe him when 150 feet was just the distance he saw in some other ordinance. But when you look at the actual, I don't know quite what to call it, but issue we have with the food truck that's been coming to town and locating over by that one place, it's about 150 feet, I would guess, just eyeballing it. And it makes it look like it's really getting into a personal thing here, and the council's gonna take the side of one of the parties out over the other party. But the more I thought about it, is what's the point of that, saying that you're not supposed to be that close? It's just basically to give a little bit, I guess, protection to the permanent business by not having them right there pulling away. Well, you do that by saying you can't come more than a couple days a week, and we've already said we're gonna do that. I would think that would have more impact than saying, you know, you have to be more than 150 feet away.
Well, I think, the original 150 feet came was back when there were peddlers and other issues, when they weren't gonna pull up in front of the department store with jeans and sell jeans at half price in front of the store that's selling jeans to make a living. Probably that, to get the distance of that actual transaction
Could
further
be.
away, more so than addressing a food truck and a food truck.
Could
That's
be,
where I think it
yeah.
originally probably came from, more that side of things than the way we're looking at it today with the exact 150 number there.
So my recommendation is to do away with that provision, but
Eliminate it entirely, or use what you have down there in option 6? and
to do
modify it?
away with the setting a distance. I would prefer, I think it's logical to say that you can't just locate yourself in a way that blocks access to another business
Yeah, I like
without permission.
I like your modification that you have down there.
Maybe we should have two options that can be voted on. Narrow it down, at least if we can't get it perfect.
Well,
But
that,
yes, you know,
somebody
we
give me what, the other, if
I don't know
Zach
the
likes the
option.
one I proposed, what's
There's
the other
one.
option?
So I have a question. So if we said if you live within the county and you own the truck, then you have no limitations on the days. So then does that also, if you're within the county, if you do set a distance limit, does that also negate the distance limit, or is that just the days of operation?
It was not my intention to say that you had carte blanche to do any damn thing you wanted.
No, that's what, but,
Yeah, no, I'm answering I'm being
Right.
serious, yeah, that,
okay.
I think it, basically, the days of operation and the county thing was simply saying, if you live in the county and you've got a place set up here, what that would basically do, it would allow the Salisburys, who have I think, that's their name, that have the Hawaiian eyes, shaved eyes, to move to Hillsborough and live if they wanted to, and still have their place over here.
Gotcha.
I shouldn't have said it that way, should I?
I hope they don't.
I hope they don't either. Okay, to move to Lincolnville.
Or just not move at all,
not
you
move
know? I think if we have the days of the week, you know, the limitation on the days in place, I think that's about as good as.
Yeah. But option 6 that you had there, I like that too, though.
Should we have on there, not have it in residential, because I've seen I know that sounds silly, but other ordinance, you know, saying you can't, I mean, I would think it's common sense, but not park in a,
Residential area.
yeah.
I think, hang on. Well, if they're gonna set up on city property, we obviously would have the ability to say no to anything that would block traffic or anything of that nature. If they're gonna set up on private property, give me an example of when that would be a problem, if they're setting up on private property.
I mean.
Marvin's got something to say there.
I don't wanna hear it. No, go ahead, Margot.
It could be an ice cream truck at a birthday party.
For-profit birthday party.
And the question was, what's the problem with that?
I don't have one. Residential. I'm just saying that's an example of at a residence.
Right.
A food place in a residential.
Was that the question?
It's the answer.
Well, that was kind of what I said.
Because I'm still dealing with, we were talking about the residence of the food truck operator,
Uh-huh.
You switched on me?
Yes.
well, I'm sorry, yeah, I
Okay.
kind of was going back.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your concern is,
Well, I was just talking about option 6, that, you know, we like that, but, I mean, also maybe make note that, I guess if nobody agrees to it, that you shouldn't set up, I guess, in a residential. Because I've seen other ordinance with that listed on there.
Yeah,
I guess if it's a birthday party ice cream truck, Margot, which we need
well,
one.
I think what we would do there, to me, that we probably just need to add another clause or another provision in our ordinance that would prohibit setting them up in residential areas, if that's what we want to do.
It was just a thought, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
This is a peddler,
This is not a peddler.
reviewer man, Mr. Softy runs his.
Oh, you're talking, yeah,
ice cream trucks down there.
they go up and down the, yeah.
Ice cream trucks down there.
they don't have a location, it's continually mobile.
Yeah, but that's, yeah.
But they
going
would still have to have a permit. Can we pass or table that? Don't throw other problems at me when we haven't solved the problem we're
Sorry.
talking about.
Yep.
And we'll give some more thought to that.
Okay.
Okay, so let's talk about part F. We've got myself and Tim that like option 6. If somebody wants to go another way, that's great. Tell me,
I
give me
like
an
it.
idea. What?
I like it.
Okay. But,
No, I don't have a thought, I was just suggesting.
I'm good with option 6.
Kevin?
I'm finishing reading it,
Okay.
I think I'm good. Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay, so I'm gonna go with 6 and give that an okay. Signage, Tim brought this up, at the last time we talked about it. Section 2 of the proposed ordinance, part C. And I read it, and the more I read it, the more I thought, well, it's probably okay. You know, it basically had a whole lot of explanation about A-frame sign and how big it could be and all that sort of thing. And then, you know, those actually are called feather signs. When you brought that up, did you know that?
Yes, I knew that.
Oh, okay. I did not know
Sorry,
that.
I'm sorry to surprise you that I know anything.
Well, I Googled feather signs and boom, there they were. I didn't know that was their name. But I just arbitrarily said you can't have more than 2 of them. I mean, if you guys want to limit it to 1, prohibit them all together, or say they can have as many as they want. But I think you say you can't, either you can't have them or you can't have more than this number, and then they got to comply with the same things as the A-frame signs, which had all to do with you don't stick it in the middle of the sidewalk, trip people, and so on. Are you
I like
okay?
it.
I like it.
A couple.
Kevin?
I'm fine with
Okay,
those.
I'm giving G an okay. Accessory structures. There was a lot there, and that, well, you know, basically didn't want you to do anything, you couldn't have tables, chairs, blah, 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 blah. I think we either ought to just say you can't have more than 2 tables and 8 chairs, and the tables can't be bigger than, 4 by 6 or something like that. Or, and what I really recommend is just saying any tables or chairs associated with the mobile food unit must be positioned so they do not interfere with vehicle access, pedestrian movement, or handicapped accessible routes to and from the unit.
I like that.
And
I
then,
like that. Would they also be required to take them down after,
During operating hours, maybe?
I mean, just
Yeah.
have them up during
that way it's not
operating
just
only? Instead
like
of
Laying
just-
that.
there blowing around
Yeah,
outside of
sitting
operating
there.
hours,
Yeah,
if they're not attached.
okay, we'll modify that to add operating hours, only during operating hours. So with that change, is everyone okay with that?
Well, so like, those, food trucks that will not be mobile, those that live in the Marion County, their unit can remain in its location, if they have something there, they would have to take it down every day.
It's a good
unless
point.
it was
The,
attached. or
the
in
snow
some way-
cone place has a picnic table.
That's why I had said unless it was attached, you know, or secured, just so it's not, my biggest concern is just so they're not blowing around when they're unsupervised, so that they're, I don't know how to say that or word that, but that was my main concern, is so that if it's not an attached structure, that it's secured.
Okay, let me,
You think about that.
yeah, we'll,
But for the most part, I'm in favor of having tables and chairs
He just threw that back on you real
up to
fast.
that.
what?
He said, he goes, you just think on that. He threw it back on you real fast.
Well, I'm gonna give it to Beenan. So I like that, that's a very good point. So incorporating that way to deal with that concern, otherwise are we okay with saying you can have tables and chairs, you just have to comply with the rest of the ordinance on where you
Yes.
put them so they don't?
Yep.
Kevin?
I'm fine with that.
And then I'm suggesting that we add a new part to the ordinance. To obtain a mobile food vendor permit, the applicant must provide proof that the business has a minimum of 100,000, 200,000, whatever number you want. Commercial general liability insurance covering their premises, operations, products, and personal injury. And also that applicants, God, I can't talk, must provide proof they have a valid Kansas sales tax license and a valid Kansas food service permit and an inspection review. Those are all things that I think they're supposed to have, but we just will make sure that they provide proof of that. What?
It's in,
Valid Kansas sales tax license.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Zach?
Yep, I like it.
Okay, so that's an okay?
Do we need to set the number?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, you do.
That's 100.
I will tell you that Brian recommended 200,000. I know because I just happened to get their form early on in this, that Council Grove requires 100,000. And I don't know, I have no idea how much it costs, and what's the difference between getting $100,000 of that coverage or $200,000? Does it make it, I don't suppose you'd have any idea, yeah?
I don't think it's that expensive. I'm pretty sure that ours was like $1 million. I think we had $1 million liability policy.
I have a copy.
I'm not saying that we need that amount. I'm just saying I don't think it's all that expensive for $100,000 of general liability insurance or 200,000. I don't think there's going to be that big of a difference in price.
And this is not a shot, but I would expect it to be higher if you sell alcohol.
Yes, absolutely,
Right.
absolutely.
Hillsboro's is 500,000,
Is it? Is that their new ordinance?
but I don't know that a guy really needs.
mean,
I had
think
written
200
down.
would
I had
be-
written 200,000 down.
I agree with 200.
2.
I'd
Do I have
be
4? No. 2 was good for me.
I'd be fine with 2.
Okay, we'll go with 200,000. Okay, other thoughts on that? What, I'm
The-
anticipating,
I do.
okay,
The fee schedule, everything remained the same on that, because this doesn't address any of the fee schedule.
That was my.
the,
Which
That-
is fine if
that-
we don't know that yet, but I was just,
I was going to, and we could do it either way. We could set up our own, but if you look at the current ordinance, here, no? I
I've
don't know
got it.
how I got this all
The-
prepared and
the
got here
ordinance-
without that.
I've got it pulled up here. It says
It's $10 a day.
not to exceed $100 in any 6-month period. So
Yeah.
you're talking
you either
about,
pay $10 or $100.
no, $10 or, well, you
You
pay
pay
$100 for
you're
6
good-
months.
You're good for 6 months, is what
Or
I'm saying.
$200 for a year,
Yeah.
which $200 over a year, that seems steep to me, but, because I think I'd have to go back and, do you know what our business licenses cost in town, Janet? I would be fine if it was $100 over the, like, for a year, you could pay $100 over a year.
What if you just want to come for a day?
I think the way that it's, if it were me, and I don't know how, right? $10 per day, not to exceed $100 in 1 year. So you can come in and pay for pay $100 and you're good for a year, or if you want to come for a day, you pay $10, or 3 days you pay $30.
If that's what that means. But if, $10 a day, not to exceed $100 in any given year. Does that mean you're limited to 10 days?
I don't think so. That's not the way I would interpret it, but I'm not an attorney, so my reading of it probably doesn't mean anything.
I'm a mediator, Zach.
Now, in addition to that, does the fee schedule remain the same if you are a resident of Marion County?
That was my question, actually.
Which, if it's only 100, that's not anything. $10 a day, 100 is
Yeah.
big, but just to think about.
Well, I do think if you're gonna run a food truck, we can't, I think we need to require that even the local residents pay the permit fee. And have the insurance and comply with all those other things. And if you're gonna say 100 for a year, that doesn't seem unrealistic to me. Amy?
I mean, I think that's fair.
I like 100 a year, or I like to give the option of the $10 a day, or
Do you think
100 a year.
200 a year was too much then?
But I like giving somebody the option that if they just want to come, if it's a new food truck and they want to come
Test the water.
see what it is, they
Yeah.
have the option to just pay a daily fee.
Right.
And then, and I don't know how it would all have to get worded, but that $10, if they decide, okay, now I want to buy the full year fee, the $10 gets credited to their $100.
Well, that's where it says not to exceed $100 in a year, so then it would be $100. That would address that.
Yeah.
That's why it's worded that way.
Yeah.
So, somebody said 200, is 200 too much? You thought so, right?
I think so. Yeah, I like 100.
I would be more in favor of 200, but I mean, that's not really a big deal, back and forth.
$150.
But if you're only open for the
That's
summer.
a mediator right
If
there.
you're only open for the summer for 3 months, then it's a big difference than if you're here all year.
Sure.
So, that's why the 6-month option was always nice. Not many people are open in the middle of middle of winter.
Right. How many, give me a show of hands, how many prefer something more than 100?
Per year?
Yeah.
I like the 100 at 6 months, $10 a day and 100 for 6 months. Because I don't think overall, if they come that many days, that's that significant.
Well, that would cover the seasonal ones.
Yep.
You want to do that?
So, in other words, it would stay the same.
Just leave it how it is.
Yeah,
Because then if you're here for a year, you do that twice and you're at 200,
right.
so it wouldn't change.
I agree
If we
with
change
keeping
this,
it
we'd
the
actually be
same.
dropping the price per year. You know?
Well, but someone could choose to get one 6-month permit
Mhm.
for $100.
Yep.
And if they choose to get 2, well, it's gonna cost them $200.
Yep,
Yeah,
they're here for the year.
we all good with that?
Mhm.
Okay,
I will have one more thing on it.
okay.
Because I ran into this when we were doing, and again, a little different, but those fees start to add up. Every time you're going to a different town, you have to purchase well, now, if you're going for a day, okay, it's $10, right? But if you're, right, you could be talking about $700-800 in a 6-month period. Now,
Well,
that
if
doesn't
you're going to
necessarily.
more than one town.
Yes, that doesn't,
Right.
I understand that doesn't necessarily concern us. I guess I'm saying, are we keeping food trucks away if we have it too high, right? And they've already got 3 communities that they're paying $150, $200, and they go, well, I don't want to pay another one, so I'm just not going to go there.
But wouldn't they just buy,
Day.
wouldn't they just buy the $10 permit and, you know, come once a week or whatever? And
Yes, they could. They would have that option, yeah.
and
I'm
then
just,
they, with bad weather, they don't have to come and so on.
I'm just bringing up a
Yeah, well, that's fine.
point from
Yeah,
the
we gotta
other-
discuss.
other side of it.
Oh, so, does that change anybody's mind on the fee thing? Okay. Well, then, I'm gonna get this to Brian and have him put together a proposal that will be, hopefully, well, I'm not gonna lock it. We're gonna get it to Brian and have him get it to us as soon as possible, and when he gets it to us, we will get it on the agenda for the next meeting that we have. At that point in time, it could be acted on, or it could simply be discussed and further amended if you wished. Okay? You mean okay?
Okay.
Yes, good with that.
All right. At this time, I am going to move that we go into executive session. It will be to discuss a personnel matter, non-elected personnel, to protect the privacy rights of a staff member. Would ask that my motion will be that the city clerk be included with the city council for the executive session. Let's do it for 15 minutes. I don't think we need 20 minutes. We'll do it for 15 minutes, so we'll reconvene at 6:31. Is there a second to that motion?
I second that.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, folks, the upstairs old city council room is open, the air conditioner's on. It's 31 minutes past the hour, and we will come back into session.
Mike's.
What?
Mike's.
He wasn't
not
saying
Mike.
your name,
Oh.
he was saying the device.
Put your mics on.
My mic is on. And we have no further items on the agenda in terms of council
Hang on.
discussion or action. We have,
Mike, you have to say no action taken.
I said
don't-
that.
You did?
yes,
Oh, well, I
No
wasn't
action
listening.
taken. I said that.
Sorry,
Yes.
sorry.
you people are bugging me.
I'm sorry.
Next item then will be public forum for anyone who wants to talk about anything.
I think we discussed it all out there.
Perfect.
All right, no one seems to want to talk about that. Let's talk about counselor, department, and staff reports. Margot?
It's all good.
I'm gonna bet money that Zach has something to talk about.
Just one thing, that Dustin completed the academy on the 28th. Is in field training right now, hopefully be out on his own by the end of the month.
Congratulations. Good job.
Thank you.
I don't know if this is fair, but I really do want to acknowledge city employees' accomplishments. Could you take a picture of him and get it to Sandy, and so we can just put a little blurb on our website and, you know, and on Facebook, if you're willing to be associated with it.
Too late now.
Thank you. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Janet?
No.
Nothing? Tim?
Well, just going off that with the employees that were, which no one can answer my question, but I was gonna ask about, we had several line workers that went through some apprentice training, I'm assuming to pay for something, so I just was gonna question them on what they got accomplished, but they weren't here tonight, so.
Yeah.
But I didn't have anything beyond that to
Okay.
comment.
Kevin?
I don't have anything.
Amy?
Did you skip? No?
I did.
It's coming to the end of the table.
Oh,
We worked to the middle.
oh, I see. I've been going to the
His
Marion,
nibs has to be last.
I've been going to the Marion Merchant meetings, and I just have to give all of those guys so much credit of all the events that are planned, you know, kind of behind closed doors, and you don't realize how much work these people put into all of these events for our community. Just the ideas that they have and the hours and the manpower that they provide for this community is just phenomenal. I can't give these people enough credit.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I don't have anything.
Nothing?
I did have one more thing
Okay.
the kudos out to the library too. They had a good event the other day where they had the fire truck came out and Smokey the Bear's 80th birthday party and stuff for the kids, and it was a good time. And thanks to the volunteers, the fire department that came out there that day and entertained the kids and soaked them down. It was really hot. So
Smokey the Bear's 80?
Yeah.
He
how
could
does
be,
that make you feel?
he could be president. Yeah, how does that make me feel? I did not know he was a young man when I was a kid. Couple of things. With regard to the Locust Street drainage ditch project, I checked on that. I mean, we all know it's going to happen, but didn't know why we weren't seeing anything. EBH is working up the bid information, and there's some question about can't find the note, but there's some question about the design of the end plate or something of something. And bottom line is that Darren reached out to some other parties for input on the best way to do it, but it's not out for bid yet, but as soon as he gets that, then he will put it out for bid. And then we had last week, they got started on the moderate income housing project over on Coble Street. But they got started by going into the front yards of two people on the west side of Coble early in the morning and digging big holes in their yards. And they were not given any prior notice of it or, heads up or anything. They weren't happy, and I don't blame them for not being happy. I talked to Kristen Wee from Lang Real Estate. We played a lot of phone tag, but eventually we did get together, and she was apologetic. She was not happy with, there was a subcontractor of theirs. It was their boring operator. When she first said, I thought she was saying he was boring.
Yeah, they're not very
But apparently
exciting.
he's boring under the road.
I'm
And
trying to think what for, though.
to access water lines, I thought. I thought the same thing.
Fairly
Aren't they already
certain.
there?
No, well, I thought that
It
we
looked like to
set
me that they were going under the road and putting like meter pits on the other side.
That's what the,
meter pits should.
I guess
There's
what,
some.
that's,
We may want to get Darren involved there because the
Okay.
pits should sit on the side of the home, the side of the street that the home is on,
Yeah.
and I thought we had done some of those already. That some of those were in already.
On the south part of that line down there. I don't know. I know this. She was apologetic. She said it won't happen again. I asked questions. I said, did we know? Did Marion's staff know? Because if we knew, then we should have said, are you going to notify those people? Or we should have notified those people. But no, we did not know. We had no knowledge of it. As a matter of fact, Kristen didn't have any knowledge of it. She said that their subcontractor had jumped the gun on them, and she would make sure that didn't happen again. So I do think we owe an apology to the folks whose yards were dug up, although my understanding is that once they knew what was going on, they were decent about it, nice about it. But so that's all I've got. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn this meeting.
Is there
I
a second?
second.
Thank you. Motion and second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned.
Zach, I guess a